I'm answering today a question I got from one of our group members. How do I open up communication with my wife? She won't even talk with me. She's dead set on divorce. Things have been so tense for so long. Well, I'm going to go through this because it's a very common question that I get. Here at High Thrive Coaching, we've helped over 15,000 couples save their marriage. And the first thing that has to happen is making sure we have a line of communication with your spouse. A big obstacle we have to overcome. Agreed? Leave a comment. Let me know. Is your spouse talking to you right now? How often are you communicating? Are you communicating every day, every week, every month, or has it been several months? If it's been several months since you've had any kind of communication, then things are not likely going to turn around for you. However, if you are talking at least a few times a month, then this method will work for you. In fact, we've seen couples that were barely talking, maybe 1 or 2 times a week, maybe only through text, even sometimes people with restraining orders. Now that's a bit extreme, but I just want to paint the picture here of what's possible for you. So as we're opening up communication, we want to do a couple things and avoid these big mistakes. First, you want to avoid putting any kind of unnecessary pressure on your spouse. Here at the Path process, we always want to make sure we gain perspective into what our spouse is going through and have them hit what we call the pause button. In order to get communication open and for them to pause on divorce, separation, affair, anything like that, right? We're going to want to make sure that we do not put unnecessary pressure on the relationship. And we call this our push versus pull method. And it has a lot to do with how you are communicating with your spouse. So push behaviors are going to be very common mistakes, and you might identify with some of them. So let me know in the comments which one you feel like you might be making. Pushing is demanding that your spouse talk to you, demanding that they have this conversation, demanding that they solve this issue, demanding that they work on the marriage or go to counseling, demanding that they do it for the kids or that they honor their marriage vows. All right. And so any kind of demands are only going to backfire. Think about it. If you don't want to have a conversation with someone about something, then them demanding that you do it isn't going to make you want to do it anymore. Right. In fact, it's probably going to make you want to do it less. The second thing is we want to make sure that we're not manipulating our spouse. Manipulation can be very obvious forms of manipulation. They can also be more subtle. Obvious forms of manipulation are like threats, like I'm going to take the kids from you, or I'm going to wreck your credit, or I'm going to ruin your finances, right? Or if you go out with that person, I'm going to do whatever I want with whoever I want. And we make those threats hoping that they come away from that and come back to us. But does it work? It never really works. And then the more subtle forms of manipulation might be being passive aggressive. Maybe it's being stonewalling or giving them the silent treatment, or maybe it's kind of using your kids or coworkers or friends or family members to try to get at them, right? Or other types of manipulation might be that you pretend to have an affair or pretend that someone's interested in you so that your spouse will be jealous and want to come back to you. These aren't pretty things, but we do them. I've done almost all of these things myself. So I know that these are things that we can do when we're desperate and we're in fear, trying to get our spouse back and trying to get them just to even talk to us. And then the other one is begging, pleading, acting out of desperation. Please don't go. Please give me another chance. Please, 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 please. I'm begging you. Please, I'll work on us. I'll do all the things you said you wanted me to do. I'll stop doing all the things you said you didn't want me to do. Please, 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 right? And when we come at our spouse like that, like, please have this conversation with me. Please talk to me about it. Please just let me know, why are you cheating on me? Please let me know why this happened. Please let me know, what are you wanting here, right? All of those are not going to feel safe to your partner, and they will run further for the hills, right? And then the last one is freezing and doing nothing out of fear. And this sometimes happens in communication when you don't know what to say. You don't know how to say it. You're afraid of saying or doing the wrong thing, maybe because you have said and done the wrong thing in the past and you don't want to make more mistakes, or maybe you just tend to go into freeze mode as your natural instinct. When you freeze, your partner is going to sense again that fear, and nothing's going to be resolved. So all of those, anything of demanding, manipulating, pleading, acting out of desperation, or freezing, is going to push your spouse further away. Now, if your spouse is not wanting to talk with you right now, that is most likely because the relationship and communication about the relationship has not been rewarding. It's become less and less rewarding to engage in conversations with you. If you keep trying to push to talk about the relationship, that is one of the worst things that you can do at this phase. Meaning when your spouse is wanting a divorce, they're having an affair, they say, I love you, but I'm not in love with you. We're better as friends. Any of those situations, the more you push talking about the marriage right now, the worse it's going to be. And I know that that's hard because we want to talk about the relationship. We want them to come back to us. We want to resolve these things. If we're thinking about it though, when we're in the process and we're engaging in any of those behaviors there of manipulating, demanding, pleading, freezing, who are we really thinking about? Who are we really focused on? Leave a comment, let me know. You're focused on yourself. And that's normal and it's natural. You go into a bit of fight, flight, or freeze mode because this is traumatic. And when we go through trauma, the natural instinct is to want to protect yourself, to make sure you aren't kicked out of the tribe, that you aren't abandoned, that you aren't left alone. That's one of our primal instincts. And so we go into these fearful, desperate attempts to try to get our spouse to talk to us, but we're not really thinking about them. We're thinking about us and how we want to feel safe, and we want the other person to come back to us to make us feel safer. You guys with me? This is making sense? Good. All right. So those are the things we don't want to do when our spouse is pulling away. And oftentimes going to therapy, talking about things, they actually make things worse. All right. So what we do here at High Thrive Coaching is we do things radically different, and we're going to solve problems in order. If you go to therapy and you start talking and hashing out all the deep issues too soon, it's going to backfire. Because again, we're talking about people who are on the verge of divorce. They are in marriage crisis mode. They are working to try to save their marriage from going off a cliff. Okay. And in this situation, the relationship is not strong enough to handle those deeper issues. They do need to be handled eventually, but in the right order and at the right time. I often relate this to like a medical example where a patient has a brain tumor and it's life-threatening. They need to have an operation, but they come into the ER and they're in cardiac arrest. They're in the middle of a heart attack and they're on the verge of death. So they need the brain operation, but is the ER surgeon going to go and do the brain operation on the tumor right now? It has to come out, right? No, they're going to get the patient stable and stop the cardiac arrest first. And then once the patient is stable enough, then they will go in and do that operation. So your relationship may not be stable and healthy or strong enough to handle talking about these deeper issues between you, talking about the affair, talking about why they want out, talking about divorce. The more you push for that, the more it's going to backfire with your spouse. You may even think that you're doing the right things and you have no idea that they're actually backfiring and they're the wrong things to be doing. That's why it's so important to have guidance from an expert that knows how to help you navigate that. So what we do is we start slow to go fast because we need to slow down the momentum of this train before it goes off the cliff. We need to create some safety around communication so that your partner will no longer feel the need to pull further away from you and shut down attempts at further communication. Okay. And this is one thing that we do really well with you in the one-on-one coaching because your marriage is so specific to you. It really takes a custom approach to see where are these mistakes that you might be making? What is the pattern that you're in right now with your spouse? There's a certain pattern that you're in. There's a certain way that you communicate with them about problems or issues or their day. There's a certain way that you're texting each other. There's a certain way that you might get defensive or they get defensive, blame game, on and on, right? There's a certain way that you might be handling the affair and checking up on them and, following them at work. I don't know, right? But there's a certain pattern that you're in. There's a certain pattern of the way that they come home and you guys greet each other at the end of the day, or you don't, right? And then maybe they blow up at you about something and then you get defensive and you blow up at them and it's tension, 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 whatever it might be. Or it might just be cold, icy cold. So you are in a certain pattern right now with your spouse. And we help you identify what is that pattern? What are the things that you are doing that are feeding this? What is your part in this situation? And from there, we're going to interrupt that pattern and create a new pattern. So that's really, really important. We want to create the safety around communication. We want to stop the old pattern, stop the old behaviors that are backfiring, and start doing some new things in some new ways to get you new results. This is what our clients do. And I love this because across the board, when our clients apply this method, they are able to open up communication. They're not always 100% able to save their marriage, but that's not the outcome we're actually looking for. What we're looking for is to help you learn skills that are going to serve you in all of your relationships the rest of your life. So these same painful circumstances and cycles do not continue to repeat themselves. But I love that all of our clients, whether they stay married or not, even if they get divorced, they are able to open up this communication. They were able to create safety around this communication. They stop doing the things that aren't working, that are creating more distance and more tension. And they start doing the things that are going to create safety and even comfort in communication. And at the most, at the least, would be some respect and some understanding. And from there, we can even go deeper into some empathy, compassion, grace, and yes, even forgiveness. But it all has to start with getting that communication open, slowing down the momentum of this train, having them hit the pause button so they consider the possibility of being happy with you. And then they start to feel safe about communicating with you as you interrupt the pattern that you are in currently. It's going to get their attention. It's going to be like, oh, wow, there's something different about Tom or Sandy or Bill or Frank or Steve. They're talking to me and handling this in a very different way. It's going to get their attention. They're going to wonder, what's up? What's going on with you, right? Why is it different? And oftentimes they're even going to become curious about why things are different. Okay. And as you change that pattern and you start to introduce a new healthy pattern, it's going to get their attention. It's going to get them curious, but it's also going to create safety around communication and help them feel safe enough to open up. As we do that, the safety piece is super vital, that you understand that you take the pressure off to get to that safety. When you take the pressure off, they're no longer feeling that need, like they're trying to get me back. This is just a manipulation. I feel all this pressure from you. I need to get away from that pressure and create some more space. You've already given that space because you've taken the pressure off, and they are no longer sensing this like hidden agenda or that kind of selfish instinct to protect yourself, right? So you come at this from a place of taking the pressure off and increasing understanding towards them. So we're going to stop focusing so much on ourselves and our biological instinct to try to protect ourselves. That's a process. We teach you how to do that. And then instead, really gain perspective into why your spouse is doing what they're doing without the agenda of trying to get them back, because that they will sense that and they'll be gone. It's only going to create more of that distance we don't want, right? As we create that understanding, we actually see, oh, now I see what they're really wanting. I see what they're really desiring here, why they're actually doing this. And then as you do that, you can validate them. You can validate someone and completely disagree with them, and that's fine. They don't even have to know that you disagree with them. You can say, I see that for you, this is true. I see that for you, you feel like you haven't been happy here for years, and that you feel like you'd be happier if we got divorced. I see that for you, you've really been struggling with this for a long time. And I can see that for you, you felt like I didn't support you emotionally, or I shut you out, or our lack of physical intimacy really, weighed on you and affected you in this way. I can see that that's true for you. When you give the gift of understanding and validation, it's going to open the door for more communication, because they're going to feel and know that you really genuinely care and that you're trying to understand them now. And so we coach you literally on how to do that, what to text them, how to respond to texts that you might get from them, how to open up more communication, how to have the difficult in-person conversations. And most importantly, when is it the right time to have those difficult conversations so that your efforts don't keep backfiring and that you're able to get communication open and have it be safe and respectful and kind and considerate. Okay. And as you do that, that's going to get them to become willing to talk with you more and more and start to bridge that we want between you guys of connection. So that is one of the first steps that we want to do. We teach you several important things in those conversations that you're going to have. In addition to taking the pressure off, creating safety around communication and understanding their perspective, validating them, interrupting the patterns, we're going to show you how to frame conversations so that you guys are both on the same page. Help you create some ground rules and some expectations on what is okay when you're in conversation and having these interactions with each other, as well as what is not okay. When is it safe to engage? And when is it safe and okay to say, we're going to disengage right now because it's maybe not so safe. And so we guide you on how to frame those conversations and then how to go about them so that you can understand their perspective and encourage them to try to understand your perspective as well. Oftentimes that comes a little bit later. You have to be willing to give first, and then we bring things back into balance after they've already hit the pause button and they're on step 2, where they start to take steps towards you. That is when things start to come into balance, and you can then express some of your needs and some of your concerns and have them start to understand where you're coming from. And then from there, we're going to deepen that into connection so that you have that vulnerability, that sense of safety, that sense of trust, and that sense of connection. And then finally, that goes into commitment. And that's where they're going to give you their heart fully again. So remember, you need to solve problems in order. You cannot push for connection or commitment too soon because it's going to backfire. You cannot talk about the marriage or deep issues or why they want this or that too soon. It's going to backfire. That's why it's vital that you know when is the right time to have these conversations and when is it not. And it's vital that you learn how to open up communication, how to talk about things with your spouse in a way that isn't going to keep backfiring, but is actually going to draw you closer and closer together. I mentioned that we're going to go slow, but we have to go slow to go fast. And once you start going fast, the momentum usually picks up really, really quickly. And it's super fun and awesome to go through that experience. So this is my process here that we have used to help so many thousands of couples to open up communication. Now, if you're really struggling and you're like, Heather, I feel like I only get one-word answers from my spouse. I feel like I ask them, like, how are you doing? I'm trying to ask these open-ended questions. I'm trying to like make things feel safe. And I'm applying a lot of the things that you already talked about. Great. If you're still not able to open up communication, I understand. My spouse, my husband here, you guys know I've been married almost 18 years to my husband, Ben. He tends to be the one that withdraws, stonewalls, puts up the barriers, right? And I got tired of hearing one-word answers from him. So I put together a free guide called our 7 Proven Conversation Starters Guide that shows you how to ask open-ended questions that are actually going to work to get more than just the one-word response. So if you want that guide, just put a comment, say 7 starters, and I will send you our 7 Proven Conversation Starters Guide, completely free. I'll send it to you right away. I read every single comment. So my friends, I hope that this has been helpful for you. I have been amazed and astounded because I've seen so many marriages turn around. It lights me up. In fact, I find it a very sacred responsibility. And I'm so grateful for those that have inspired me and touched my life and shown me just how amazing it is when we learn how to do things in a new way and we start to get new results. It transforms not only your life and your relationships with your partner, your spouse, your children, but affects generations to come. So my heart, my love, my appreciation flows out to you, and I cannot wait to see your marriage thrive.
Thanks for listening to The Thriving Marriage, your A to Z blueprint for not just surviving marriage, but thriving. Until next time, my friends, thrive on.